So what's this about a Black Death that I keep hearing about? So let's start with a brief history on this particular strain of Yersinia pestis. The Black Death started in 13th century China after a series of very unfortunate events that left the land destitute and ravaged in famine. Events like natural disasters, the Mongol invasions, and general lack of hygiene, since this was the medieval ages, culminating all sorts of diseases, like a caustic cauldron of death and dysentery, vomiting up all sorts of nasties and yuckies. But yuckiest of them all is the Black Death. The Black Death itself is a strain of Yersinia pestis common among rat fleas. That's right, not rats, rat fleas. Though at the end of the day it seems that rats are still to blame, only this time the rats had an accomplice in the form of parasitic freeloaders. Due to climate change, rodents carrying these particularly pestilent parasites started migrating to nearby countries, thus spreading the disease and kickstarting what will soon be known to the world as one of the deadliest pandemic diseases to ever ravage the planet. The Black Death. It seems as if the Black Death picked the perfect time to strike and spread, as this was 13th century medieval times, where religion, superstition and general lack of hygiene were the biggest trends. Combine that with all the warring and conquests and now you have dead rotting bodies to deal with. It seems impossible to avoid the plague altogether, more like the plague was destined to happen at some point. But if we were to conceptualize a solution for this outbreak, we can't just apply modern practices and methods to this situation. Keep in mind this is the 13th century, where modern concepts like basic hygiene, social distancing and careful handling of infected individuals were a far cry from what is basic common sense that even the youngest of children have today. We have to come up with a solution that would fit the times and practices of the old age, and with a little bit of thought, and help from the internet. The ultimate solution to this problem, in my opinion, is church-sanctioned quarantine. Or just quarantine in general. In medieval times, religion and superstition ruled the minds of meager men. Make any mention of God in your sentence and you're bound to get the peasantry and noblemen cowering in fear of the divine. So it should come as no surprise that a declaration of quarantine by the church itself would have effectively reduced the impact should it have been done so at the onset of the plague.
And it is by the will of God that I, the priest, declare upon you, that all physical contact with another human being is hereby prohibited from this day forward, for as long as God wills it.
As for the other countries that don't have the church as their religion, quarantine would have still been the best solution. At the time, there was no medical practice that could have created a vaccine or cure for the plague. So the only solution is to separate the healthy from the infected, the wheat from the chaff, the homies from the homos, sapiens, and these certified medical practitioners certainly weren't helping the situation either. With a get-up like that, the best you could do is cause fear and mass hysteria. Next thing you know, the local peasantry are burning women due to accusation of witchcraft, but that's a topic for another video. How the quarantine would affect the local market, trade, and commerce economy is beyond me, but if we take a quick look around our surroundings, we can make a healthy guess as to what might happen. With that out of the way, how did all those dead bodies even get there? Based on the statistics, you will notice that the amount of casualties per country scales with population, wealth, and status. With that information in mind, Europe suffered the most deaths, peaking at 50 million, reducing the population from 80 to 30 million by the end of 1353. However, the massive death toll only receded by the year 1353. The plague continued to kill people until year 1666 that the Black Death truly disappeared from Europe and the rest of the world for what we should all hope is forever. Now that the Black Plague's kill count is slowly plummeting, how exactly did the Black Plague end? Well, the answer to that lies in one of my previous statements, minus the church part. The Black Death finally ended by the year 1666, when the last of the plague-infested carriers have died out, unable to spread the disease due to quarantine finally being sanctioned to the local populace by the year 1377 at the port city of Ragusa, a town in Croatia located in southeast of Europe. There's a popular story of how the Great London Fires had burned all of the plague away, but modern theory suggests otherwise, and is largely considered to be just that, a story. After the plague, there were large ramifications to all of affected society. Trade was negatively affected, and everyone had an awful mood for a lengthy period of time. On the flip side, however, everyone stood away from all of the warring and conquests. Ransacking the livelihood of the already plague-devastated enemies with your equally devastated armies just wasn't all that appealing to even the most mad of warlords. It would be years before all of the world's affected nations would recover. Looking at all of this now, should another Black Plague pandemic happen, how exactly should we, the generation of modern society, react? Well, modern society already has a cure for the plague. Not a vaccine, a cure. Which means you can't contract the plague and fight it off with your immune system via vaccination. These antibiotics, ciprofloxacin, doxycycline, gentamicin, and levofloxacin are effective at combating Yersinia pestis and are guaranteed to have you better in a week or two. However, this is not the best solution. It should be known that the best solution to a pandemic is not cure, treatment, or vaccination, but prevention. Something which we have already failed to do with the coronavirus for a multitude of incompetent reasons, mostly politics. If China had listened to that one doctor who discovered the disease, quarantining and prevention protocols could have contained and neutralized the disease, preventing this worldwide pandemic in the first place. USA has all the research and funds to actually develop a cure or vaccine for the disease, but inept and selfish politicians keep getting in the way. Lastly, the Philippines could have closed off the country as soon as the coronavirus was announced. To prevent the disease from reaching the Philippines. Preventing the problem from happening in the first place is always the best solution to anything ever. Kind of like how the best defense is to not be there. So, should the Black Death resurface, quarantine and containment at first signs of the virus should be top priority. Preventing the outbreak in the first place is how all of modern society should react to any disease that threatens to evolve into a worldwide pandemic. At the end of the day, despite all of this research and fact checks, it is all just speculation. It may or may not happen again, or the proposed solutions might not be effective. But we can still learn from the terrible events that unfolded during 1346 to 1353. Like how we always learn from our past mistakes. Simply take the actions of our ancestors as an example, learn from it, and then carefully determine the next course of action. Quite frankly, in my perspective, we can all just be glad we weren't born at that time. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe. I don't have a YouTube channel, lol. Ha.